A very intriguing piece of news on a possible assassination attempt against India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi that occurred during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting held at Tianjin in China is doing the rounds on the internet. Initially, I thought I would dismiss the news as a conspiracy theory. There was no evidence to substantiate such a news. No governments would provide any clue regarding that. I remember having not read any explanation from Government of India, Government of China, Russian government or any other government on the issue. So I decided to dismiss the news as fake or fabricated. But later, I realized that there is some logic in the news. So I decided to follow it up and I analyzed the news. Now I find that that is worth discussing here. So let's get to the bottom of the whole issue. Welcome to Insights. I am Hari Kumar. Recently, I happened to see a news about an assassination attempt against India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting held at Tianjin in China from August 28 to September 1. According to the report, there were solid evidences about a possible assassination attempt that would have been similar to the fate of Lal Bahadur Shastri, former Prime Minister of India, who died mysteriously at Tashkent, which was then part of Soviet Union, erstwhile Soviet Union. So the same fate would have awaited Prime Minister Narendra Modi if necessary, inputs or security inputs were not received at that time. Now, India's research and analysis wing and Russia's secret agencies got wind of what was about to happen, and promptly they took some countermeasures to thwart any possible attempt. So that was why Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared the limousine of President Vladimir Putin during the summit, and they spent a lot of time inside the limousine. So this is the secret of why Modi and Putin shared a limousine during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. Now, when I read that, I found that quite convincing because nobody had explained about that extraordinary event. Normally, no head of a state would share a limousine with any other head of the state during a summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was expected to go in his own limousine. President Vladimir Putin was expected to travel in his own, and so were other heads of the states. But instead of that, President Vladimir Putin came to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi, came to pick him up from his hotel. And reports said President Vladimir Putin waited for almost 10 minutes for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And they shared the limousine, and it took them around 45 minutes to reach the venue. And thereafter also, they were inside the limousine, engaged in some discussions. So many people at that point of time thought that Modi wanted to, or Putin wanted to discuss with Modi in private, and perhaps that was the reason. And the best place for that was his own limousine. That was why he allowed, or he invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi to his own limousine. But now it seems there was more to the whole incident than met the eye. Why I say so? Because this is a very like a futuristic vehicle. Putin's limousine is a vehicle which can thwart any type of attack. For example, whether it is a cruise missile attack, whether it is a drone attack, whether it's a ballistic missile attack, whether it's a grenade or any machine gun attack, whether it's a landmine explosion, Putin's limousine will survive all those attacks. So that was why Prime Minister Narendra Modi was taken in that limousine. It seems that even China got a whiff about the possible attempt. Definitely, it might not have been China, because if something had happened to Prime Minister Narendra Modi while he was attending the summit in Tianjin, I'm sure India-China relations would have, ruptured or broken forever. Nobody in India would forgive China for that, number one. And China also will lose their status internationally. So if a guest invited for a summit gets injured or attacked or even killed, then what is going to happen? The country is going to lose its credibility in the eyes of international audience. So I think definitely I would remove China from the list of suspects. Definitely that was not Russia. If that were Russia, Mr. Putin would not have taken Prime Minister Narendra Modi inside his limousine. Then which country is capable of executing such an act, and that too inside China? I think there is only one country in the world, and the doubts point towards United States, or to be more specific, the CIA. And that's the only agency capable of, executing such, or precisely planning, executing such an act. So that could possibly, it would have been the handiwork of someone like that. Some Western agency was involved in that. They were not happy with the way India is developing. They are not happy with the way India is embarking on Make in India program. The West never accepted India as their equal. When India used to pursue their space program, Western media and Western leaders used to ask, what was the need for India to pursue a space program? The crying need for India was to build toilets, to build other types of basic necessities. So they always used to make such cryptic remarks earlier. So possibly they didn't want India to engage in research and development in strategic areas of strategic importance, and that could be one of the reasons, because India is now progressing by leaps and bounds, or India is now taking an orbital leap in science and technology. India is embarking into development of semiconductor chips. Then the electronics industry has developed by leaps and bounds. For example, now India is the second biggest producer of smartphones in the world. India is the third biggest exporter or producer of electronics equipment in the world. So the country has progressed very fast. So somebody might not be loving that. Now, if you look at what happened in the surrounding countries or in South Asia, during the last couple of years, you would be surprised. For example, Sri Lanka was in total chaos. There was an economic, perfect storm. The country's economy faced a perfect storm. The same is happening in Nepal. There is the politically, the country has fallen into total chaos. Look at what happened in Bangladesh. There was a violent regime change. Now Pakistan is a basket case. There is no need to say more about Pakistan. So the whole South Asia is in a turmoil. And many times, many leaders have accused the United States for this chaos. Especially the former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina very clearly said US wanted her help to create a buffer state or, a vassal state along the northeast borders of India. And Prime Minister, then Sheikh Hasina said she was unwilling, and she paid the price for that. So possibly there are the reasons to doubt a US hand in the possible attempt against Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Then you look at what is happening in the northeastern state of Manipur in India. The violence that happened in that state could not have occurred without the help of a foreign agency. And if you look at cookies, if you look at the various Christian groups in Northeast, it is very clear that they have got links with Baptist Church of the United States. So a possible US hand in certain uprisings or certain revolts in India cannot be dismissed as a conspiracy theory. There is more to it than meets the eye. So this is the situation. So in that context, we cannot just dismiss what the news that is doing rounds on the internet. So there seems to be some truth in it. And luckily, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been able to thwart such an attempt. And perhaps the US is very annoyed with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that is why President Donald Trump is making statements, self-contradicting himself. Many times he addresses Modi as my best friend, but without any reason he slapped a tariff of 50% on imports from India. Because many countries in the world have been importing crude oil from Russia. Actually, the US itself had supported India's imports of crude oil and LNG from Russia. So many of the acts of US President Donald Trump are intriguing and contradictory. So now you get a proper reason for the unrest or the antagonism of President Donald Trump towards Narendra Modi. Now that is it. He has been trying many ways, but Modi has overcome those threats. So this is the reason. Now I think this is a very unpredictable situation. This has created a very totally unpredictable situation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not uttering a single word about what happened at Tianjin. But at the same time, many handles I have noticed, many of them support the BJP. They are, spreading this information. Since I feel that from what I said, you also might have realized that if you factor in many of those happenings in South Asia or many of the events that happened earlier, there is reason to believe, or at least there is reason to think that there is some amount of truth in those news. Let us think that way. I'll be back with more updates. Till then, goodbye.